You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hello and welcome to one of our early season streams from Force 13 HQ. This is the latest on Typhoon Surigae, which is slowly drifting towards the Philippine Islands and has spent the whole day, really, last 24 hours, intensifying substantially. 12 hours ago, in fact, it was only at around 90 miles per hour, high-end Category 1. Now we find it at mid-range Category 4 status with more intensification possible as it heads towards the Philippine Islands. My name is Nathan Foy. Here I am in the studio once again, joined by my team in this hour, consisting of quite a few people actually. Tonight we have got Christian, Joey, Xavier, David, Hypothet and Noah. Good evening to all of you. It is evening for most of us here. David, you're on that side of the world over there in Australia, and it is 7 a.m. in the Philippines. Now, it would help if I could actually grab their audio, and there they are.
Yeah, hello, good evening, good morning.
Good evening, good morning.
Good morning.
There you go. We got them in the end. Thank goodness we didn't make that mistake this time. Well, there we are right now with the storm on the latest close-up imagery. What do we make of the storm and its progress in the last few hours? Its eye was really good earlier, but disappearing slightly, is it?
Yeah. I think the storm underwent an hour replacement cycle earlier. That was also, I think, what Devon thought of it, and now it's regaining its strength. From the hour replacement cycle, we see pretty solid eye wall. Earlier, we saw some indications of a double eye wall. Now we see one solid eye wall, and it will probably intensify quite substantially from now on.
Now, that's what everyone's thinking. Why haven't the models latched onto this? GFS in particular has been saying 920s peak for some time, and that would mean that the storm would only be a little bit stronger, maybe 155 miles per hour, when a lot of forecasters are thinking that this is making a run straight for Category 5 status plus. What are we thinking about that?
What's been going on? We have the GFS, which has been initializing at a pressure nearly 15 plus millibars above what we currently have it at. The latest one from the 18Z, I believe they initialized at 956, and as of right now, we have it at 940. So that has been one factor that has been playing in. Another thing is that the models haven't been registering a rapid intensification. That has been a trend with many models, and that's been something that we've seen for a while now with other storms historically, and that's really why models aren't really going too much higher than what we have it right now. It does not mean that it's going to stop strengthening anytime soon, because it's definitely got the structure, it's got all the conditions it needs to continue strengthening. It's just that the models aren't up to that quite yet.
We're struggling a little bit with your signal there, but would you believe it? We're still in Southern Hemisphere mode with the icons there. We'll get that fixed shortly, because there's been quite a few storms there this season that we've been covering as well, a few really strong ones. So that's been keeping us busy during the off-season times. But let's talk about the threat to the Philippines then, and it is a significant one. In fact, let's take a look at the forecast. This is, first the warnings from Pagasa. Where is it? There they are. So these blue areas, Signal 1 warnings. They also extend further south. onto Surigao, which is oddly similar to the storm name, which is on the northeastern part of Mindanao. The Dinagat Islands up there as well, up to Leyte, the whole of Leyte, and Comotas Island and Biliran. Samar, the eastern part of the Bicol region, and Catanduanes, all under Signal 1 warnings. That's as of the 5 a.m. update from Pagasa. Ticking along at the bottom of the screen, you can see the chances of tropical storm conditions for various locations there as well, and those will be going by during our stream tonight. This morning, this is the JMA forecast. They've still got extremely wide cones, even though they've changed the layout of their website to make it less navigable, I suppose. So that's interesting. And the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, this is their forecast right now. They're calling for a peak at 125 knots, it says there. Let me just check. They're not going... Yes. So there they are, 125 knots for two of those positions. That's 145 miles per hour, just a little bit higher than the storm's current intensity. And then curving towards the north. They also do big cones. And you can't rule out, certainly the gale radius there, the red zones, the circular zones there on the radials, on the edges of the storm there, do extend to cover just the extreme coastal areas of the Philippine Islands on the eastern side. Now, we were worried earlier on, maybe yesterday into today, that... northern Luzon and eastern Luzon would have significant chances because the models were flip-flopping about. They've flopped back again. So it's looking like it's going to move further out to sea again after making that close pass, but we can't be too sure just yet. Let's take a look at one of our screens right now. There's some early visibles from Joey, I think it is.
Yep. The sun quickly rising over this system as it continues its rapid intensification, and as Nathan was saying, the models have been the term flip-flopping about is quite rightly put by Nathan. Right now, I think it was the Euro model, I think it was the last one, it was showing that it would make that close pass to the Philippines, and then would make that slight recurve and then head back over towards the Luzon region. But there's still a lot of uncertainty on the current track.
Also, we should mention tonight that we are simulcasting on Force 13 Philippines, our still a fairly recent channel. We launched it last June. We are there right now on Facebook Live. So hello to everyone there as well. Send in your questions in the chat on YouTube and on the Facebook stream, and we'll try and take as many as we can. Start your message with Force 13 all in text on YouTube. It will light up for us, just like one there from Super Typhoon Haiyan, apparently. Surigae will have a chance to become a Super Typhoon, question mark. Yes, definitely has a chance.
100%, yeah.
Well, as of right now,
Very
it's only
likely.
10 mile per hour off from our analysis. Super Typhoon starts at 150, 1 minute sustained, and this is as of right now 140. So, as long as it keeps up the pace it has been, it should be reaching it within the next 12 to 24 hours at most.
I think it's practically certain that this will peak as a super typhoon. The current structure is pretty good, improving after its hour replacement cycle, and the central dense overcast is getting more circular, and it's all intensifying now. The visible imagery gets more impressive, and this has an extremely favorable environment going for it, an incredible amount of ocean heat content below it.
Well, looking at the latest imagery on a screen again, and here I am. Oh, I'm blurred. That's wonderful. That's a great start to my debut on the camera. There we go. The storm is there, as you can see. So what's been happening recently is the eye... Has it been an eye wall replacement cycle, Noah, properly just now?
I think it has.
A few hours ago.
But right now it looks like it's in a transition phase as well. The eye is starting to come out again on those later frames. Some of the blues starting
Mhm.
to appear, and some of the lighter colours. It looks like that's going to continue. What you did notice happen there is when the eye was fading a little bit, the pink zones were really blowing up. That's quite common when a storm's eye disappears just briefly. The edges around it strengthen in what's the word, in tandem with it, I suppose, uh, makes up for it. So right now, though, it's looking like decent Category 4 status at least. We're talking about estimates. The JTWC went up to 130 miles an hour earlier. That's what they're going with now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're expecting 145. Right now, we're running with 140 miles per hour right now, and we expect further strengthening. Indeed, this storm has a significant chance of becoming a Category 5 in the next 36 to 48 hours. And what's more with this storm is that it's probably going to stall, or not so much stall, but move very slowly as it moves northwards along the eastern coast of the Philippines and then up towards, well, beyond Luzon now by the looks of things, because it looks like it's going to recurve a little bit more. But for 3 to 4 days, we could be looking at this storm moving incredibly slowly, and that will be the point where we look out for every little jog, because that could bring tropical storm or typhoon conditions to some land areas. And as you've been seeing the percentages down the bottom of the screen for tropical storm conditions, typhoon conditions fairly low at this point, but a shift towards the west will really increase that. Anyway, I shall disappear now. So, any other comments on this so far?
It's been
very
an
rapid
interesting
intensification phase.
Yeah, this is really not something that we typically see in April. The last time we saw something like this, really, in April was when Mesa crossed over into the month of April because it originally formed in March. So yeah, this is really what we've been starting off. It's only the second storm of the year, so to see something like this, it's basically a wake-up call that the Western Pacific season has definitely begun. I mean, we had Duchenne in February. Now we have Surigae here, just proving that it does not take a season window to have storms become extremely strong. They can become strong any time of the year. It looks like we had Wu Tip in 2018, and then we had, of course, Goni that hit the Philippines last October, and then of course now we have Surigae in April. So very interesting what we've been dealing with the last few years with these dense systems.
This imagery is
Yeah.
showing the progression of the storm in the last, I think this is about 18 hours or so. And you can see how at the beginning it was just one of those. It's hard to explain that early phase of a storm when everything's blowing up but the structure of the eye isn't really there. And then just how it wraps around and forms that eye in those later frames. And massive cloud tops early in, late yesterday.
Yeah. That was still when we had the shear storm and all the cloud tops were completely blowing up. And then the shear went away and we had this more organized eye pattern taking over, and now it's has been going through a rapid intensification phase. And it's quite likely that it will be the first April Category 5 storm since ESA of 1997. So that's a thing.
Ah. Yes, I've animated that one more than once. It's hard to think of April Category 5s. Certainly beyond that. Let's take a look at another brand of imagery here. I think this is this Christian's screen? Yes, it is.
Yes.
So we're looking at, this is a, is this the, oh goodness, I've lost my train of thought now. It's, I think, the aviation band, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I've got here.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
oh no, sorry, you go ahead.
Well, just looking at it on the screen there, you could see that the eye was clearer earlier on, and then just that phase again where it goes away just for a little bit. The eye's probably still just as much there as it was before. That's just it being obscured by cloud tops briefly, but it's looking like it's on its way back out, and new frames of imagery would really tell a story about that, whether we're going to be seeing the eye really pop out in the next few hours. So as was mentioned before, very good heat content in the oceans. It's at a fairly low latitude. It's only up at about, 11 degrees north, a little bit less than that. So at lower latitude than a lot of storms end up forming in the Western Pacific and the Philippine Sea. And it's really deep tropical heat and moisture that can really blow this storm up in the early season.
Yeah.
So-
The ocean heat content is pretty substantial, with the 26 degrees isotherm extends over 120 meters down in the ocean. So even if this stalls for days, the upwelling will probably not be a problem at all.
There's a question there about how large is the eye?
6 nautical miles.
6.
Yep. According to the Typhoon
Yeah, that's-
warning antenna.
Just 6.
I
Yeah.
thought it would be more than that.
The microwave eye is definitely larger. I think it's a medium-sized eye.
The satellite eye looks large as well, about 25 miles.
Yeah, I'm going by their report. What is it? 6 hours old. But looking at this in the satellite imagery, it's definitely. I would go for 20 or more.
25,
Something like
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's looking good. And what is it? Dual inflow channels. And the JTWC is saying it will continue, or it's likely to continue intensifying for another 24 hours.
Yeah, and then it's a slow leveling off in intensity, really, a slow decrease. For instance, you're looking at that there. Where are we here? I think we've got in 24 hours or so, it's peaking, and then we're talking 36 hours later, a day and a half later, it's only 10 or 15 miles per hour weaker. Still category 4, same category.
And Nathan, Alicia Hines on Facebook, and welcome to those viewing the stream. Alicia has posted, it seems it's a bit early for typhoons, but at least it's sweeping to the east instead of coming head on. But for those, for people in the Philippines, you need to be prepared, closely monitor the system, keep an eye on the local reports. I know we've got a signal one in place, and I haven't cited the rainfall factor.
Oh, that's a big factor that we haven't actually mentioned yet, and we really should have done at this stage. Rainfall for Samar, probably for Catanduanes and the eastern Bicol, basically the places that are getting tropical storm conditions, is going to be very high. We're looking at something in the order of 400 plus millimeters of rain over large areas there in the eastern Visayas region into easternmost Luzon. So there could be extremely high rainfall amounts. I think it warranted, was it stage 7 on the CDPS according to Devon earlier?
It was, yes.
It was, yeah.
Stage 7, which is pretty severe.
Indeed.
Indeed.
And apart from that, we could be looking at the storm still being a Category 4 when it makes its closest pass. The latest indications, the best we can see, is that the storm will probably pass the islands in the Signal 1 zones. They'll probably receive winds of mid to high tropical storm range.
And again, I do want to reiterate with the stage 7 on CDPS, if this storm were to deviate from its current forecast and head for the Philippines, that does mean that catastrophic damage is possible.
It's a fairly fine margin in this particular situation, as we've been seeing with the models. Now, it's looking better than it did a little while ago. I think, is it 2 runs in succession now that they've been trending ever so slightly away again? But 2 runs ago, it was virtually making landfall on Luzon after passing very close to Catanduanes and Samar. Now it's a little bit further away, but of course models can switch back again.
And for the viewers, Nathan has activated the tropical automated stream, and I'm also on the AU local channel showing at times the satellite imagery for the typhoon, and I have noticed the system jolting, and but as I said, it's a system that you've got to monitor, be prepared, and ensure that you've got an emergency and kit, plan and kit.
Yep. Now, oh, I completely lost it now. Yes, as you were saying, the automated stuff. Obviously, we're doing these streams an hour tonight, or this morning, of course, local time in the Philippines. We're probably going to try to do 2 streams a day. We'll probably be upping the hours of coverage as it gets closer to land. But in the meantime, you can catch up with the automated stream at any time on our live page, youtube.com/force13/live. If you're on that link, it's down there at the bottom right now. If you're on that link, it should redirect you there after we're finished here at the end of the hour. So that's something to keep people in the loop when we're off the air. All right, let's go to some YouTube questions, because there's been lots and lots. The HWRF is doing something hilariously bad, and it is going to be quite the giggle to see, apparently. I don't know if anyone knows about that. I don't.
I don't.
HWRF has been pretty weird as of late, considering the fact that they've basically wanted the cyclone to become completely anywhere, pretty much as it gets closer to the day 5 mark.
What?
About that?
I don't know about that either.
Hmm.
It's so monsoonal, it probably has 0% chance at becoming annular.
David.
I was just thinking if anyone has info from the JMA, what is their position on the system?
Well, I've
Last
got
I-
their map, but I don't have their info.
I can pull that up real quick.
Whilst we wait for that just now, Justin says the northern eye wall looks weaker than the other parts. Is this dry air or part of the eye wall replacement cycle?
It's probably part of the eye wall replacement cycle, but it has been weak the entire time. That maybe was due to a little bit of shear that still persisted, but now I think it's just part of the eye wall replacement cycle, and it will probably recover fully in a few hours.
We'll see.
Nathan, I just refreshed one of the imagery that I'm monitoring, and it looks like the eye is definitely clearing out again. As
Well, I'm
what you
looking at
said
that
earlier.
right now, and you can see this. It's clearing a little bit. I'm just a bit curious about that northern area because it's opened up a little bit there. Convection has died down just a little bit.
What
so
has
as
been
right
apparent?
now,
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
as of right now, the JMA currently has this with winds of 85 knots, which is 10 minutes sustained. So it would be about major, definitely for sure. Wind gusts would be 120 knots, 10 minutes sustained. And the tropical storm force wind area is definitely large. That is for sure.
Yeah.
The southern quadrant, 350 miles, basically for the whole thing, not just one quadrant. So keep that in mind. 350 on the southern side, 230 on the northern side. So that's a very large typhoon that we've got on our hands here. And it is moving west-northwest at about 9 knots, which is about 15 kilometers an hour, 11 miles an hour.
I believe the yellow zone on this on their map is the 30 knot winds, which is just short of tropical storm status.
Would seem about right.
But I was just about to point out on the satellite imagery, infrared particularly, it looks to me like it's a dry air hole on the northern side. It looks rather like that.
Yeah. What I've noticed is that the most convective bursts happen entirely on the southern quadrant. So it's bursting in the southern quadrant and rotating around, but nothing is substantially bursting in the northern quadrant. That I don't know why, but it may be from a little bit of shear, just a tiny bit that prohibits the northern side to have convective bursts firing.
All right. Let's take some more questions. I guess. Well, there's an obvious question: will it make landfall in the Philippines? Well, you follow the center of the cone. You'd arrive with the answer being no from the JTWC, but you look at the areas of uncertainty, and it can't be ruled out. Less than half chance, obviously. Otherwise, the cone would be overland. So there is a chance, but it's not likely the storm will actually make landfall. But obviously, with a rather large wind field, as been pointed out, conditions are going to deteriorate in quite a few areas. Certainly, all the Signal 1 zones. Any chances of some significant impacts for the Philippines from this storm? Surigae, Philippine name Bising, by the way, if you weren't aware. It depends what people define as significant, really, but I would say yes, because rainfall can be a horrific factor in tropical cyclones, and with the numbers I quoted earlier, certainly has the potential, if people aren't on guard, big potential for flooding damage.
And what about storm surge?
I imagine storm surge won't be a massive issue, considering it won't be a direct hit.
Rip
I
currents,
think
though, are definitely
it'll be a modest storm surge at most.
yeah.
But Nathan
I
and the team, I just wanted to say, this season down here in the southern hemisphere, it again, and we saw it in the northern hemisphere. It's the steering mechanisms. It is what is being played out upstairs, and
it
I
looks
keep an
like
eye.
for all it seems, it's becoming rather weak. That's why the storm's going to be moving very slowly.
Yes,
And it's uncertain.
and it's a weakness in the steering which has allowed it to make a bit of a dash. What is it, west northwest or west?
It's been going west-northwest.
But I don't know. I mean,
It looks to be moving a
is
little bit more
west-northwest.
towards the west as of
Yeah.
the latest frames. It was moving west northwest, but it
it
looks like it made a
does.
little teeny bit more of a jog towards the west rather than north.
The Joint Typhoon Warning Center said that with the weakness in the steering ridge, it would probably head for that weakness, but then it would come up against the new steering ridge, which would, well, they're saying it's likely to go in a northerly direction. But Nathan, that kind of uncertainty, it still shows vanilla in the inside. That hasn't
Well,
changed.
I mean, it's a really big cone, though. It's not the
Yes.
same cone as what the National Hurricane Center would have. I can't remember the actual definition of the JTWC cone, but I think it might even be the chances of tropical storm force winds affecting the area. So Manila right on the very edge probably means that it's got a 1 or 2% chance of getting tropical storm conditions. Very, very unlikely.
But then Nathan, would you be able to bring up the Pegasa track?
I don't have that with me, actually.
Manila is out.
Right, yeah, well, yeah, I'd imagine that to be the case because they're doing a different method with their cone. It's probably going to be narrower. In fact, who's showing it us? Joey's on it right now. Let's just take a quick look at that because we really should. The Pegasa cone, there it is. Still very wide on the later days of the forecast. And you can't completely rule out Luzon at all. By Thursday there, it could be literally any. If you take that cone literally, by the purple circle, it could be anywhere from the same place it is in 3 days. It just stays still. Or it could have made it almost all the way to the southernmost Ryukyu Islands of Japan or Taiwan. But it's most likely to be just where they've put it there, off the northeastern tip of Luzon by a good, it's probably about 500 kilometers there. And just to get a reference on how far the storm is from land right now, as of 5 a.m. I think it was, or 6 a.m. It was 411 miles from Surigao City. That's around that'll be around 670 kilometers in distance, and moving fairly slowly towards the west or west northwest. It won't affect that particular area so badly, but they are under signal 1. And again, areas that might be looking for a potential landfall, at very worst case scenario, the northeastern tip of Samar, Catanduanes, and definitely Luzon from Isabela northwards. So that's that right now. We had a few more questions on Facebook, David.
Nothing at this point in time, Nathan.
Well, I've seen some. Forecast for Infanta Quezon. Now, I'm not sure exactly where that is, but Quezon itself, I mean, fairly low chances of storm conditions there. Anywhere west of Naga, really fairly low chances. Well, maybe a little bit to the west there, but by the time you get to Quezon, probably fairly low chances, although you can't rule out tropical storm conditions fully. But it would look like it's not going to affect that area so badly. Also, the northeastern part of northern Samar, yes, that could be one of the worst affected places. Worst case scenario, we could be looking at typhoon conditions. Realistic scenario right now, you're probably looking at strong tropical storm conditions. That's winds of around 100 kilometers per hour or a little higher. And right now on Joey's screen is the RAM multi-model diagnostics, and you can see a skew of charts there. The first one, what on earth is that bar that's going off the screen? I'm not sure, but ignore that. The other ones are going for category 4 mainly, and I think it's CTCX that has a brief category 5 later on in the period, which is interesting. I'm not sure how much faith to put into that. You can see the wind shear amounts. No, it's not the best quality graphic here. It's not Joey's fault. It's just how it's been come across here. The wind shear there is currently around just less than 20 knots. That's dropping. Sea surface temperatures remaining very warm. Relative humidity is a bit cut off at the bottom, but I can tell you it's staying stable at a decent number. And the track there is fairly uncertain to an extent, with the GFS an outlier almost to the west. HWRF has it much east there, I think. Yeah. But when you look at that stuff, there's not much saying that... there's not much to say that the storm has really very much at all, stopping it from intensifying a lot. And despite that, there's only one model that's going with category 5 status when it's already nearly halfway through category 4 status. Any idea why that might be?
Maybe they haven't catched on to the storm's intensity.
That's probably true actually when you look at the numbers. I think the GFS initialized this storm at 956 or something like that.
Yep, 956.
956, yeah.
Let's take a look at Ryan Leahy is with us right now, and your screen showing the true color visible imagery. Nice looking imagery there.
Yeah, it also shows, the whole scope of the storm here. So, yeah, there you go.
We had that from, yeah, there it is. And that gives you an idea of the storm's influence. You can see the precursor bands just about stretching through towards Mindoro and Palawan now. But the main bulk of the storm itself is still just a little bit offshore. You'll see the rainfall start to increase in Mindanao a little bit later on today, and also for Samar and Dinagat and Leyte by the early afternoon probably. But taking a look at the latest imagery right now, let's just refresh that imagery. Whilst we're doing that, we'll just take another look at the storm's progression in the last few hours and take a couple more questions. Another question about Pangasinan, will it affect that area? That's towards the west, if I'm not mistaken, but I always get confused between a few of these locations. I think that's over towards the west, or is it not? Oh, I've lost it already. Okay, that's great. No, it is up there towards the northwest. Okay, yes. So that area is probably going to be safe from any impacts. Anywhere along the western coast of Luzon, I don't think is going to get anything. Let's see if we've got some YouTube questions just now. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We're here for another 20 minutes with the latest information on Typhoon Surigae, Philippine name Bising. And just in case you're new to our coverage, we are going to be here quite a few times during this storm by the looks of things. This is our first proper stream on this storm and pretty much of the year. And we will have regular updates. The next one will probably be at 7 p.m. Philippine time today, when we'll have another update on the storm. But as mentioned earlier, we have our automated stream, which will be running all the time throughout. So you can get the latest imagery on our YouTube page. But looking at the storm right now, I just got slightly distracted looking at the cloud tops, and the northern whole semicircle really looks to be deteriorating, is it?
Yeah, it's possible. I got infrared open on my thing. Well, the grays have been getting a little more dark towards the blackened end, from what I've been seeing over the latest frames. Not really just something to discount either, but I don't really know if this is just natural or 'cause you also got the purples in here. I mean, those have
That's
also
blowing up.
yeah, that's been blowing up. So I don't know. I wonder if it's just trying to adjust to a new structure or something to keep strengthening, or
Now, what band are you on there? Because it's showing at the eye a lot better than the one that we're showing.
oh, I'm on the clean infrared enhanced one.
Is it possible to get an eye read at temperature on that?
Think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
It looks like the eye temperature is probably around maybe the -20 range. And probably warmer when you look at those earlier images showing the warmer eye, but right now the satellite I think is indicating probably around -20.
On my
Yeah.
satellite imagery, it's around -30 to -20.
Oh really? Okay. A little bit lower than -20 then. Let's see if we have some more questions just now. Why are the models so uncertain for the storm's track? Because...
essentially,
Yeah, go ahead.
first of all, the storm's intensity is very uncertain. And the intensity works on the steering current. So if the storm is stronger, it will be more likely to be influenced by upper level steering, and that will more likely steer it away from the Philippines. If the storm is a bit weaker, it will probably be influenced more by the lower level steering currents. And the storm is tracking up to the Philippines, and then it will be practically sandwiched between two ridges and a trough, and that is a pretty weak steering influence, and the storm doesn't know where to go, and that's why the models differ widely on that.
Yes, it's a tough one right now. I mean, we weren't really supposed to be in this situation a few days ago when models had it curving quite a bit outwards, but it kept trending west. Why did that happen, by the way?
I think because the storm first of all struggled to intensify with the a bit of easterly shear we had yesterday and the day before, and the trough over Japan that was originally meant to really fast pick it up and then also make a strong extratropical cyclone out of this. That is really trended weaker and trended a bit faster, and that means basically the storm is more influenced by the ridge that is trying to steer westward.
And that appears to be the case right now, and the ridge looks to be digging in, considering that the storm is moving pretty much west right now.
Oh.
And how large is it for now? That was another question that we had there. I'm not sure what the radius of winds are just now. I had them this morning, but I imagine that it's increased. Let's see what we've got from the JTWC on that just now. So the current wind radius, tropical storm conditions extending out the furthest in the southwest quadrant, according to them, at 155 nautical miles. That's approximately, trying to work out my conversions here, it's somewhere towards 300 kilometers out. Slightly less in the northeast, 150 nautical miles, and the northwest has the least, 120. That's still around 240 to 50 kilometers out. And just a reminder that the storm itself right now is about 500 or a little bit more than 600 plus kilometers away from the closest land right now.
Okay. Yeah, on the IR satellite imagery, it appears that the convection is very focused on the southwestern quadrant. There's constantly bursted there. That's probably a sign of a little bit of weak shear influence, if I had to guess.
And let's take a look at Xavier's screen right now, showing the unenhanced infrared. And you saw that eye. I mean, when I saw that earlier, I really thought it was about to pop out properly, and we're going to see. Oh boy, it's going to be a huge situation. I mean, it still is, but it got clouded over, didn't it? There.
Let's take a look here. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yes, Christian.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I'm just commenting on the
you're looking at.
satellite loop.
I thought you were doing something. Well, look like yours now.
Oh, you're looking at mine now.
But it also
Okay.
shows pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, it does.
I've seen some people in the public server discussing whether the IWAR replacement cycle is actually finished or not, because that eye is a lot larger on microwave imagery, I would say, than it appears on satellite. So there might still be some remnants of an inner eye wall that will be killed by the outer one, and that's maybe overclouding the eye.
Do you
That's
still
just
think
a
it's on an intensification trend at this point?
Yes, it
Yeah.
appears to.
Yeah.
Also, it seems like the central dense overcast is getting a bit more circular, and with a bit more circular central dense overcast, it can work better on trying to wrap this convection in the southwestern quadrant all the way to the northwestern quadrant, and really have these uniform convection patterns developing. And that is a trend that I've really seen in the last few frames, that the central dense overcast as a whole just became much more metric.
Is there any stock in that annular forecast?
I mean, annular storms have no banding features, so no, there's absolutely nothing in that.
But it's got the symmetry. That's for sure. When you're looking at that, more of it coming along in the latest imagery. Let's take a look again at the warnings once again. Those who aren't familiar with that just yet. Signal 1 warnings, which is the lowest tier on the Pegasus warning scale. You can't see all of this image. Let's just see if we can pan down briefly. So there you can see the southern extent. That's Surigao, Del Sur and Del Norte, both with signal 1. Dinagat Islands, Leyte, southern Leyte, Camotes Island, Biliran, Samar, eastern Samar, northern Samar, Sorsogon and eastern Albay, and also Catanduanes there, all under signal 1 warnings, which, if I remember rightly, was for sort of tropical depression / weak tropical storm conditions. Was it something like that? I can't quite remember now, but
Yeah, it's like, I think it's like 20 miles an hour to 37 miles an hour within like I can't remember the exact time frame, but I think it's like between 48 and 72 hours, somewhere around there, where they're expecting those conditions.
That's one thing we haven't spoken about, is timing, actually. Just to walk you through this JTWC forecast again. So its current position is where it says 115 knots, 1618. That's its position as of 6 hours ago, actually, now, so it's a little bit further west-northwest of there. I think it's probably deviated a bit south of the forecast track. So, and actually, I'm wondering whether it might have moved a little bit further quicker than the forecast track as well. I'm not sure. But looking at that right now, its timings are so 24 hours from now, you're looking at the storm making a fairly close pass to Samar, probably about 200 kilometers by the time we get to tomorrow evening. And it makes its closest pass and probably slows down to its slowest speed, and then starts to turn towards the north really slowly, passing probably 200 kilometers from Catanduanes as well, and then moving towards the north. But this is very uncertain, and the storm track could change. I would say that you look at the width of the wind field there, the orange outlines, that's probably where the center of the storm could track in either direction. So that's something to really consider. Let's see if we have some more questions. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We're here for a few more minutes to talk about this storm, which is continuing to develop. And along with our automated stream, when we go off the air in a few moments, we also have plenty of other places to get involved. You can join our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13, for direct conversation with lots of storm trackers around the world, and plenty in the Philippines as well. And you can, of course, follow us on our social media platforms as well. Our team have been working very hard producing graphics all the last 24 to 36 hours on Twitter. There was a problem earlier today on the Philippines Twitter where we weren't able to upload images. I have no idea why. But hopefully that's rectified around about now, and all the channels will be running at full force, and of course on Facebook as well, which is where we're streaming. Why is the Northern Eye Wall weakening, is a question from Cool Creeper Ryan.
That may have to do with that most of the convective bursts are heavily concentrated on the southwestern side, so that might contribute to some that might suppress a bit the convective bursts in the northern side. And the northern eye wall had a pretty significant gap for most of this storm's lifetime, so it is trying to close it off, but there might still be a gap in the eye wall up there.
Latest images. Interesting. I'm not sure what to make of all that.
For what I'm looking at, Nathan, the eye's cleared out.
A little bit. I'm sure. I've not seen visible, actually. I imagine it's looking better on visible right now. But I could be wrong. I think Joey's showing visible right now. Let's see if we can have a quick look. There's some visible, maybe.
But someone in the public server has said something interesting.
Okay.
That the original inner eye wall is probably starting to decay, and
Yep.
The outer eye wall is now taking over. And on that loop he showed, it's pretty obvious that this smaller eye wall is starting to decay. The eye is clearing out, and it's getting obviously larger, and now
Yep.
it's starting to wrap a little bit more on the northern side. So this is probably now in the second stage of its eye wall replacement cycle, where the inner eye wall completely fades and the outer eye wall takes over.
So we've really caught this storm deep in its transition phase for this hour of coverage.
Yeah, indeed.
I guess so.
And still, you can definitely see it's expanding. Did someone want to speak just there?
Well, I'm looking at true colour, and as far as I'm concerned, the eye has cleared out. And I'm looking at the short floater visible, and the same. It's definitely clearing out.
More questions. It looks like it's still moving west, question marks. It does look like it's still moving west. It looks like a jog, but we'll
I don't
see.
have that impression. On my image, or maybe get a little bit longer
Well,
loop.
actually, it was earlier. Now it's more northwest again.
Yeah, there was an obvious jog, but now it's going pretty much to the northwest. And yeah, the general motion, if it continues on that northwesterly motion entirely, that will probably mean it will miss the Philippines, but any jog to the west could really bring tropical storm force winds on shore.
I really think that with the size of the wind field that tropical storm force winds are going to happen.
When do you think that will be the case?
Yeah, so, well, again, consulting that track forecast map, you're probably... Oops, there goes the bottom screen. You're probably
dear.
looking at about... that's wonderful. Let's see here. So, you're probably looking at about 24 hours before tropical storm force winds start lapping across the shore of eastern Samar. Yeah, 24 hours, maybe slightly less. All depends on the movement, though, as you say. And if the jogs are, if those numbers tally up and the jogging ends up being eastwards by 50 kilometers, then it could well mean that the whole of the Philippines stays out of tropical storm force winds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems to be a new burst on the southeast side.
So, a new burst on the southeastern side, you say?
It's still very small.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is actually, when you look at the visible imagery, it's pretty obvious it's trying to burst. Actually, in the northern quadrant, we have a burst, and the entire southern half is now bursting. So, we're gonna probably see some wrapping convective bursts, and then the eye pretty much clearing, and as it is now in the later stages of its hour replacement cycle. And yeah, that eye just has some little cirrus that has to sink away. The eye is not far away from clearing into the way positive temperatures, I guess.
Oh boy. Well, that's not very good.
No.
Another question, would you say that this has a 90% chance of becoming a Category 5? Very specific question.
Um,
I don't know.
I wouldn't
No
say
one
the
wants to answer.
percentage is that high, but it does definitely have some sort of. There is a slight chance that.
Me personally,
the system
I'd probably
can-
give it about 40%.
So
Yeah,
on
I
my
wouldn't. I,
personal
Yeah.
forecast,
I wouldn't go
I-
as high as
50%.
90. No.
No.
on my personal forecast, I've guessed that the storm will peak at 140 knots, but I don't know. It is probably pretty likely it will be peaking as a Category 5, but probably not in the 90% tier.
Yeah, well, there it goes. That music came in very loudly. Sorry about that. But we are finishing here now on Force 13 Live. That was our update on Typhoon Surigae. Currently 140 mile per hour winds and a pressure of 940 millibars is what we ran with at the start of this hour. I'm sure our team are going to come out with more updates on that intensity very shortly. When we go off the air in just a moment, then you will be returned to the automated stream on our live page on YouTube. youtube.com/force13/live. You can watch this stream back after we're done as well. That will be it will appear magically on our YouTube page somewhere. Subscribe if you haven't already. There'll be plenty more videos on the way. I think have we got a normal video update in 3 hours time?
There should be one at 3 Zulu, which is 3 hours
3
time.
hours from now. So that's going to be our next update on the channel, and that will be across social media as well. You can follow Force13 on Facebook and Twitter at Force13, and you can email us if you've got any questions to send directly to the team, or you can communicate with our great community on Discord, discord.gg/force13, to talk about tropics at any time. So, the takeaway from this: Typhoon Surigae getting stronger. It's edging closer to the Philippines. It's going to be here for some time. It's going to peak near Category 5 strength, if not at that strength. And it's going to deliver huge amounts of rainfall for the eastern peripheries of the Philippine Islands, Samar in particular, Catanduanes, possibly eastern Luzon, in for more than 400 millimeters of rain. And that's if typhoon conditions stay away. But it looks like tropical storm conditions are going to arrive there in around 24 hours. So it's time to prepare for this storm. It's getting closer. Signal 1 warnings in effect, and we'll have more updates on the Force 13 channel. But that's it for now. Good night from us here at Force 13 HQ, and hope everything goes well today for you planning for this storm. Good night.